All right, so it's been a long time since I've done a talking head video. I think the last time was right after I got pregnant, and even then, I don't think it was particularly coherent. So something that I've been thinking about doing for a while and have been really nervous to try and do is a video about the last 2 years. I think for a lot of us who have been involved in any creative field or any field in general, or who have spent any amount of time in performance, it's given a lot of time for reflection. And so I want to kind of try something out and see if anybody else is interested in like doing this kind of thing. So this is a segment called Share Your Story. And basically, we're gonna rewind to like mid-2019. So the year of 2019, I got married in June to my long-standing partner. It was a gorgeous ceremony. It was unlike anything I ever even imagined as a gay kid from the 2000s. My family was wonderful. I married into a fantastic extended family. It was just one of the most beautiful days. And we, even with the weather, like in June in Idaho, you never know. We got to spend a really beautiful time with everybody we knew. We got to pack up and go to Hawaii, which is something I'd never imagined doing for my honeymoon. It seems so basic, but it ended up being one of the best trips we've ever taken. And not because Hawaii, but because I got to see a monk seal, and those guys are just enormous. It was very cool. And the reason I bring all this up is because it was normal. We were very, very fortunate to get married the last kind of like normal summer that would happen, because 9 months later, we'd be in shutdown. So, at the time that I got married, I was looking for new work. I'd been working out in Oregon and I wanted to be closer to home. And that kind of transitioned into me taking a job at a school district as an IT technician. I was getting to work with kids, I was getting to work with teachers. It was a really awesome experience. We were making plans for the future, setting up ideas for like cosplay and which cons we wanted to go to. We were starting to get into playing D&D. It was really great. And everything was just super, super normal. And the holidays rolled around. It was our first Christmas as a married couple. It was very, very intense. Mostly because, like, you know, who's gonna drive the car when it's snowing? Neither of us should be driving the car when it's snowing. But I remember just before going off for Christmas break, there were some crazy headlines. So I'd started seeing some headlines basically saying there's something sketchy happening. Well, at the time, you know, the media was so blown up. We were deep in the Trump era. Everything was terrible. Every headline you heard was terrible. And I'd kind of gotten to the point where I was really desensitized with media. And I was like, you know what? So we went on Christmas, we came back, and when we got back, things were kind of different. There was kind of a vibration happening. We started hearing about there might be protocol changes. We might need to start doing some new things. And if you work in IT, you know that everything is disgusting all the time. And it was like kind of getting on to the point where we were talking about like, how do we teach people to clean their devices? Something we probably should have been teaching a long time ago. Well, at this time I was just super distracted because we were planning on having a kid who is currently obsessed with the toilet, and I have to keep going and grabbing him because he wants to flush all his things down it. We were planning on having our first kid, and we were really excited, and I was so fixated on that because anybody in a same-sex relationship knows just how much goes into that. And this is something that we'd been planning before we'd even gotten married. We were looking into all of the things we needed to do. And I was planning on carrying, so I was working on being really self-aware and being very clean and very low stress and like trying to be very fit. And so I just didn't have time to keep track of the news. I was just real busy. So February rolled around. We did our first treatment to try for baby, and things had spiraled, and we were starting to see some really alarming headlines. Well, the week that we found out we were pregnant, we went into shutdown. No better than trying to film anything. But yes, so we went into shutdown. We got a positive pregnancy on our first try, and it was going to be during a lockdown. At the time, everybody was just like, it's going to be just a couple of weeks. It probably won't even affect us. We live in Idaho. Nobody takes anything seriously here, except maybe guns. So we were not particularly worried. We figured it was just all going to blow over. And it didn't. A couple of weeks turned into my wife teaching remote for the rest of the school year. I ended up having to do extended work from home because I was now high risk and nobody knew what the risk of pregnancy and COVID was at the time. And that was just kind of our life. I honestly don't remember a ton of it because I was super tired. But I remember feeling like it was all very surreal, probably because nobody was taking it very seriously here. Things in Idaho, while the lockdown happened, very shortly after the lockdown lifted, things kind of went back to normal. People went back to school, they went back to their jobs. The mask mandate thing here has been really difficult. Getting anybody to wear a mask is very charged. If you wear a mask, people are likely to tell you off. If you don't, they're likely to tell you off. It's just a very charged atmosphere. And anybody who knows anything about Boise knows that we're one of the fastest growing locations in the United States. So on top of that, you have all these people moving here en masse to live in the rural countryside because these cities are just so overwhelmed with what's happening. So we kind of just went through the motions, and most of our early COVID experience was related to my pregnancy. We weren't both able to go in to see ultrasounds when we went to see the baby. We weren't both allowed to be in the sitting rooms at the same time unless it was a really big deal. Very often, you know, we would sit in waiting rooms for extended periods of time. I had to get tested over and over and over again for COVID because we kept getting exposed. You know, we were both working in high contact areas. I was back in the building at my job, trying to get one-to-one devices to everybody in the school district. So we were just trying to survive being COVID parents. And it was really, really hard. My son tried to come at 26 weeks, and then he ended up coming early at 36 weeks for health issues related not to COVID. And then we were new parents with a baby in the NICU during COVID. So this was its own monster. We gave birth, but no one could come up and see us. We were completely isolated in the hospital. This was November of 2020, so things were still pretty serious. And it wasn't like Delta wave crazy yet, but it was definitely like you could not have people up to see you. You could not be in the NICU. We couldn't even be in the NICU at the same time to see our son. We had to divvy up who got to do his first bath, who got to do his first feed. We were completely alone and isolated from each other and from our baby and from our support system. It was really, really scary. And then I struggled with postpartum health issues pretty shortly after. I had really high blood pressure, and I struggled emotionally with having had an emergency C-section and then having to go through that NICU experience, and it was really difficult. So, you know, we were very lucky. Our son was born healthy. He was born healthy and secure. He was able to recuperate quickly. He was home within 11 days, and it was mostly because he was sleepy and lazy and didn't want to eat. He was just like, nah, I'm going to take a nap instead. He's a really strong kid, and we were very lucky. There were a lot of kids in that NICU who were much, much earlier and very, very small, and it was very scary to see them. And I think that's the other compounded thing is everybody's down there struggling through this together, and nobody's in a good space. And you can't rely on the other parents in the NICU. You don't talk to them because their whole world is just where your world is at. It is shattered. And, they might be dealing with extra health problems on top of all of that. So essentially, we got through that and we brought our baby home right before Thanksgiving. And it was very exciting because our hope was that we would be home in time for Thanksgiving. He was originally supposed to be a Christmas baby, but he ended up being a turkey baby. And he's a Scorpio, so cool. But after that, I kind of started coming back from being pregnant. And I don't know if anybody's talked about pregnancy brain, but that's a real thing. And I woke up to like this world that was just on its head. And at this particular time frame, I had chosen to change careers because the school district in COVID broke me. Like, it destroyed my soul. I loved my job, and then COVID happened. And I just couldn't do it anymore. And I was very fortunate to get a job writing, which I'm still doing, and I love immensely, and most days I don't ever feel even remotely qualified to do it. But it's something that I've never been more passionate about because I've always been a writer and because I've always wanted to write full time, but never believed I could do it. So I was working to try and build this career dealing with my premature son and all of the things and hurdles that come with that. And then we were also, again, remote. My wife went remote right after Christmas. So in a way, it was kind of like a blessing and a curse because like she didn't have to take a bunch of leave to be with me, but at the same time, she was still teaching from home. And we had this tiny peanut who could poop in an arc behind her videos. It was very creative. He's already a thespian. So we kind of were navigating that. And for the most part, the beginning of the year felt pretty okay. I was working really hard at work. My son was hitting all his milestones and exceeding expectations. My wife was doing everything she could at school. But there were like the little things. You'd go out in public, and while not much had changed, everything was different. You'd walk past buildings and like they'd have all the signs on them for mask mandates that were optional. You would walk by people protesting in the street. You would hear about the protests happening in other places. Unfortunately, I was so heavily pregnant during the BLM movement stuff that I don't remember much of it. And I wish I had been able to be more a part of that movement, but that's another video. But there was other stuff happening here. People starting to get really angry about, when's it going to go back to normal? When are we going to start seeing normal again? And, I don't think there is a normal after all of this. I think we're all deep in a state of mourning for the life we had, and we're grieving en masse this existence that we don't possess anymore. It was just destroyed. It was snatched from us without any kind of warning. And it was really hard to walk around with this newborn baby constantly terrified. Do I take him out now that he's old enough to go out? Do I socialize him? Do I expose him to this world? Or do I keep him locked away in my house? I can't take him to groups. Who knows what he could come in contact with? A preemie baby is way more likely to get sick. He could have complications. He could end up back in the NICU. He was 4 months old and we were still waffling on whether or not it was safe to take him on walks because we didn't know if that was going to be safe. And because nobody here was taking it seriously, it was really hard to make those decisions and feel powerful about them. Because either you're being aggressive or you're not being aggressive enough. We're very careful people. We don't want to die of the plague, so we were trying our very best not to give it to others or contract it. And, for us, there was the added, risk of this tiny infant human who we, were just trying to figure out how to navigate. And my wife and I are very lucky because we've been together for such a long time that our communication is only strengthened through all of this. It's really brought us together in ways we never could possibly have imagined. Becoming a COVID parent has been beyond difficult because we've had to rely on each other where we would have relied on community and groups and other parents, and we just can't do that. I'm just making sure he's not dumping his food out all over the floor. So basically, we get to the end of the summer, things are feeling okay, and we decide we're going to take a trip. And we decide we're going to go to FanX in Salt Lake City, and we are going to cosplay, and we're going to bring our kid. We're vaccinated. We're careful. It's Delta. It's Delta, and we should have been paying better attention to that. But we live in Boise. Nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about what's happening here. So you have to kind of just take what you can from the media that is all cracked and on fire, and then hope that maybe you're making good decisions in your on fire community. And so we decided we were gonna go, and we did. We packed up and we drove down, and 2 days into my trip, I got a text from my mother that my stepfather was ill and that they had contracted COVID. Well, up until this point, we had not really had a lot of exposure. We'd had people around us get sick, but never sick enough to go to the hospital. And we'd had people we knew who knew a person who knew a person who died. We'd seen the numbers on the media. We'd seen everything, and we were trying to take it very seriously, but you just don't understand until you are deep in it. And that is where we ended up. So on the second day of our trip, I got the text from my mom. She said everything was okay. But I had that like deep feeling, that scary deep space where you're like, this isn't right. But we couldn't just pack up and leave. We were there with a bunch of other people. And she had said that they were doing better, so we decided not to go home. Well, the night we got home on Sunday, I got the text from my mom that they had to take my stepfather to the hospital. He was hypoxic. He had crashed. And when they had brought him in, his blood oxygen levels were critically low. And I have a really frustrating relationship with my stepfather. He was not somebody that was always very kind to me, and it's not something I really want to get into deep in this video, but it was toxic at times, and it was very difficult, and we were in a process of attempting to get to a place where we understood each other. I wasn't sure where I was on that yet, but we had been actually talking and trying to build some form of relationship at that point. And it hit me really hard because my parents were unvaccinated, and I don't want to go into that either. It was not something we agreed on, but I respect their choices as their own people. And he got really sick really quick. It was really, really bad. Every day we would get little teeny updates. He didn't go into the ICU right away because he got sick right at the height of the Delta wave here. It was really bad. It was the end of September, the beginning of October. The numbers here were through the ceilings, and the mortality rate was insane. And the day we found out that he was in the hospital, I just knew he was not going to come back out. And I think at that point it was just my emotional breaking point. I know everybody like talks about their emotional breaking point with grief, but to me it was like that day, that was the day he died, which is fairly accurate because after about a week, a little bit longer than a week, it's hard to remember the time frames, of just slowly degrading. They ended up taking him into the ICU when there was finally a bed available, and he was intubated. And from there, it just got worse and worse. And I remember the day that I found out that it was basically done, we were out on a walk. It was beautiful. It was just a couple of days into October. We had taken my son on a walk to the park close by our house, and the trees were just starting to turn, and there were ducks in the water, and we were standing at this point where there's like a promenade, kind of like Central Park in New York. I've never been, I don't know. But I was standing there, leaning against the railing while my wife took care of our son with my mom on the phone. And she was just telling me what we were going to do next, what tomorrow was going to look like. And we were allowed to go see him, and I had to make the decision on whether or not I wanted to go and see him. And we had to kind of figure all of that out. And I feel like You know, you always expect that people will just die suddenly, or like it'll be long and drawn out. This is just so weird because it like felt like forever, but at the same time it felt like there wasn't any time at all to process it. And he was not going to be woken up. We would never speak to him again. And I was infuriated because there was so much that I needed to tell him that I didn't get a chance to talk to him about. Things that were really important to me. And I decided I was going to go see him, and we made the plans to go the next day. And that was kind of like how we'd ended that night. I don't remember much about the evening. My sister was here. We weren't really in a headspace to be particularly sociable, so it was just kind of like going through the motions. And then the next day we woke up and we started going about our morning, and we were at the Fred Meyer when I got a call from my mom. We were looking at pajamas, me and my sister and my other sister and my son, and we were looking at pajamas, and I got the call from my mom, and she was like, you need to come down right now. He may not be still here when you get here. I guess he had flatlined when they tried to flip him that morning from prone, and they weren't sure if he was going to be there when we got there. So we rushed home. We'd walked to the store, so we had to walk all the way back to my house before we could even get a car. And then we rushed to the hospital. My youngest sister, who wasn't quite 18 yet, was driven from school by a family friend, and we went up. And what I saw that day changed my life, because I can't even process it now. We are having a major malfunction. The baby wants to make soup out of the cat water dishes. So essentially we went up. You have to do all of the tests to get in through the door of the hospital. My dad wasn't in the COVID part of the ICU, but what part isn't the COVID ICU, you know? And we walked around the rotunda once we were inside the ICU, and we just kept going. Just room after room after room after room after room. And it was this horrible, eye-opening, terrible understanding of just how many people were in that space. And all of them were hooked up to ventilators. All of them had proning schedules. All of them were on death's door. Dozens and dozens of people. And we got to my dad's room, and I looked in, and he was not a recognizable person. The illness had caused him to lose a lot of weight, but he had bloated a bunch. He had all of the machinery on. He'd been spiking really bad fevers because he was going septic. So like, it was just a terrifying thing to see. And you can't prepare yourself for it. I'd been spending the last 24 hours trying to figure out, like, what am I going to see? You see a little bit here and there on the news. You see a little bit here and there of like a view into the ICU, but those are all controlled to a point. So the thing you really see when you go in there is 10,000 times worse. Everything smells like death and antiseptic. And I walked over, and my stepdad had always been this towering force, for better or for worse. And he was just shriveled in his bed. And I remember touching his skin, and he was just clammy. And I just was like, is he already dead? And I couldn't like process that. And we stood there for a while, and I realized, in a way, yeah, kinda. The machines were just keeping his body alive, but there was no feeling that he was there in it. And they let us kind of say goodbye, and I chose not to be in the room when they disconnected everything. And I remember standing out in the hallway connecting to the ICU. It's this great big glass space, like this airwalk that's just all glass. Like you'd see it like a college leading into like the sub area. And there were like some people having a soda. There was like music playing, and the sunshine was just coming in. It was a Wednesday. It was probably the last nice day of October. And it was warm outside. And all I could think was, he's gonna die in a room where he can't even see outside. And all of his last days leading up to this, where he thought he was gonna get better and come home, he spent them alone, covered in tubes, unable to do anything. And it doesn't matter how much frustration you have with a person, I genuinely believe no one deserves to die that way. And lucky for him, he got to have physical family beside him as he took his last breath. Some of the people up there don't get that. And a lot of the people early on in the pandemic didn't get that. So afterwards, we left, and it was surreal. Like, I've never lost anybody like that. I've lost people, but not like that. Not in a hospital surrounding them, and then you just like go home. Do what? Cry all day? I don't know. I couldn't cry at that point. I still don't get super weepy, and sometimes I wonder if I'm broken. But I process things very logically, so it's more like I get really like lost. I get really lost in remembering what I saw. And I get really anxious. Sometimes I like wake up from dreams I've had where he's in it, and I forget for a minute that he's gone, and I have to like reprocess everything. We went back to my mom's house, we had lunch, we talked, but like instead of talking about normal stuff, we were talking about a funeral. How do we plan it? What do we do? But it was Delta, and the day my dad died, 36 other people died. Trying to find a place to do a funeral was really difficult, and trying to figure out when it could happen was really difficult. And I didn't know how to be there for my mom. I didn't know how to be there for my sisters. I didn't know what to do. I was just lost. So I did the only thing that a new parent does know how to do, and it's like, I'm gonna go to the store and buy lots of soda and snacks that we're not gonna eat. So I guess I went mom mode to help. And the week that followed, I just worked. Work was such a saving grace for me that week. I needed to feel productive. I needed to feel like I was doing something to go forward, even if that was just watching things get finished while I was working. Some people just need to go sit in a quiet room far away from everything else. I need to be in the thick of everything to feel like I'm actually productively managing stuff. And we planned a funeral, and it was shocking to me how much like planning a wedding a funeral is, but with so much less time and no happy feelings. It's all, what color do you want the tablecloths? What is this plate gonna be? How do we make this look special? And I was just like, I don't know. At the end of the day, are we gonna remember any of it? Are we gonna remember anything other than putting this person in a box in the ground? Like, how do you deal with that? And then meanwhile, there's still people not wearing masks around me, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, guys, I just watched somebody die on a ventilator. Y'all are out here being like, it's not a big deal, it's just the flu. And it's like, no. But at the same time, you have to respect people's space and let them make those decisions and take those risks. Even if it puts other people at risk, you can't force anybody to do anything. So it's like just processing that. And, all this time I'm just lost. And, we did the funeral. He was cremated. We buried him. We went and we did the ceremony. Sorry for the rattling in the background. I gave the kid a handmade maraca. So basically, after my dad passed, my birthday rolled around. We didn't do anything. I didn't feel like celebrating anything. That's a space. I turned 29, and I felt bad. because in the past I have not celebrated my birthday with my stepdad because we did not have the relationship in process to do that, and I didn't feel very celebratory. My son's first birthday rolled around and I was like, he didn't get to live to see his grandson turn 1, and I had to deal with that. And then the holidays rolled around. My younger sister turned 18 and he wasn't there for any of that. And you know, it's your firsts, and I guess in a way we are lucky because we got to get those firsts out of the way really quickly. I'm so sorry. Trying to give him a distraction. I made a bad choice. It's very rare that I'm not on the floor playing with him, so he does not know how to deal with this. So, we kind of got through the holidays, we went through the motions, and then the first of the year rolled around, and it was like, here we are celebrating 2022. Hey, bud, can we not do that? Shh. I need you to not screech the Pokeball halves across the floor. He's not going to listen to me. He is 1 year old and will do what he wants. Yeah, I see. They're very nice. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not going to show his face for privacy reasons. He really wants me to lift him up so he can see himself in the video, but we're not going to do that. So basically, January got here and I just felt really numb. I felt like I hadn't had the chance to process anything. I always have a problem with seasonal depression, and I was feeling really low about my job. I was feeling really low about my hobbies, my family life, just like not feeling on it. I felt like I'd just kind of been swept through the grief process, and we were just kind of like making do. And then we tested positive here at my house for Omicron, and I lost my shit. The entire time as we all caught it, we all caught it 4 days apart, and I was just convinced that there was no other outcome other than we were all gonna die. And every new positive test was a new trauma point. Every new sniffle, sneeze, and fever was a trip to the ICU. Every moment that we were not functioning and we were all laying on the sofa, I was seeing breathing tubes and hearing ventilators. And you know, in the past, when you catch a flu, you lay around and you watch Parks and Rec and you eat soup. But with this, it was like this terror was just inside me like a monster trying to get out. I was so scared. I couldn't function. I couldn't think. I was so tired. My body felt like I was being crushed by 100,000 pounds because of the body aches. And all I could think was, this was how he died. And oh God, it was fucking terrible. So we got through all of that. In the last couple of weeks, I've just been sitting here thinking about the last 2 years. I've been thinking about how I've been living in this fear state. I haven't been making any plans to move forward. I haven't been trying to get past anything. I've been a brand new parent. I've done my first year and several months of parenting in the middle of a giant pandemic. I haven't met any other parents. I don't connect with other people. I'm alone while my spouse is at work all day. I'm alone at night when I'm at work all night. And it's so hard. I can't just go to a coffee shop and work there because I'm afraid. And I can't just go sit out on my patio because it's January, February. It's freezing outside. It's Idaho. Give it like a month and soon it'll be like -3 and 70 at the same time. But like, right, oh, thank you. I appreciate your gift. That is very neat. He has a Premier ball and there's a baby toy inside it. He's very proud. Yes, I see it, Lovey. So, you know, it got me thinking about, how do you start moving forward? How do you make the decision to start planning cosplay again, planning videos again, planning art? I draw, and I haven't been drawing. I used to draw all the time. Part of that could be the new kid. Part of it could also be that I am massively situationally depressed and dealing with trauma. So I was like, what do I do to start doing these things I care about again? And how do I learn to do them new? because you can't go back. We're not going to be able to go back to how it all used to be. Cons won't ever be the same. The feeling I get when drawing will never be the same. The space that I go to when I'm writing will never be the same. The world looks different now. So it's relearning how to do these things that I love. And I realize that everybody's in this space right now. We're all united in this attempt to find our footing. This desire to find something familiar, something stable, something that isn't riddled with CNN and Fox and MSNBC headlines, something that isn't punctuated with a death number. You know, we want to believe that when we go outside and we breathe in that spring air when it gets here, it's going to smell like something we remember from a better time. And I think what we need to do is just start working on making new times that accept that things are going to feel different. And my first steps in that are talking about what I've seen and what I've been through, the isolation of 2 full years of my life. When this started, I was 26, 27. I'll be 30 this year. And that's crazy. And, you know, at the end of the day, we can't go back and change anything. It's done. We can't go back and get vaccinated earlier. We can't go back and wear more masks. We can't go back and argue with our parents about things. We just have to accept that they are what they are, and that's the most infuriating place. So I think for me, I want to start believing in tomorrow again instead of just surviving today. I want to start planning for what I want to be doing. I want to keep progressing in the things I love. I want to see the sunshine and actually be in it. I don't want to be somewhere else up here. I've always believed in living passionately and vibrantly and spreading that intensity. And my statement at life is to inspire others to be inspired. So I hope I can inspire you guys to talk about your journeys and share your struggles, because you're not alone. We've all been through this muck together, and it doesn't matter where our beliefs lie or where we're at politically. We're people, and we deserve to have a chance to talk about where we've been. And I feel like if we all start listening just a little bit more and we hear each other, we can help heal some of that that's been going on. So make a video, talk about what you've seen, be honest and open and upfront, because it'll be a lot less scary once it's out there. And maybe you might help somebody else talk about what they're going through, and maybe you could inspire somebody else to pick that pencil back up, or get out and start sewing again, or fearlessly tackle something that they've been afraid to do. I believe that we all deserve to have that, and that we need to start taking it again in a safe way that's respectful of other people. And if you've lost anybody in the last 2 years and you've had to watch what I went through this year, I'm so sorry. It's literally an unfathomable way to have to lose a loved one. And it doesn't matter what anyone else says. Your struggles, your grief, your feelings are valid. And whatever anger, sadness, or, you know, apathy you need to go through to get through that, do it, but love yourself and make sure you take good care of yourself, because shit's hard enough as it is. You need to be taking care of your heart. And outside of that, I just, I hope everybody's on the right track, and that we can maybe look forward to a summer where people start sharing their con pictures again, and they start showing their projects off again. And I'd love to see more of those kinds of things in the world. I want to see families out enjoying themselves, and I want to enjoy myself too. Because if there's one thing that I've learned from all of this, it's that life is really fucking short. And I don't want to have missed a single second of it, no matter what space I'm in. So be safe, wear a mask, don't lick doorknobs, and good luck out there, guys.